Welcome back. We've been talking in the last two talks about. We started by talking about objectives in real life, examples of real life objectives. Then you talked a little bit about the objectives in two plays, Three Sisters and Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche in particular, and Stanley and Olga and I've forgotten her name.
Natasha.
Natasha. And towards the end, I said it would be really interesting now if you could just tell us a little bit about. I'm going to say first that I was an actor when I was a young man, and I never had a director who said, what's your objective in this particular scene? And yet, I think. I don't think I was stupendous, but I think I probably played a lot of objectives. I played the objectives of whatever the character was going through. So the first thing is, why do you need to bother? Because surely most people will instinctively understand what that character's after, what they want in that particular.
No, it's almost the last thing that most actors want. Yes, they want a relationship, but the trouble with actors, they tend to play results. So they know how a scene is going to work. And so when they say lines to their partners, they say them with the assumption that their partners will understand what they're saying and react to them. But if you don't imbue that text with a deep undercurrent of purpose for saying them, nothing will happen.
Okay.
And intellectually, often actors understand intellectually what their character wants, but they're not playing their objective. I mean, with all respect, I don't think you probably were playing objectives a lot of the time. Every so often you might have done, and I think really instinctive actors do. It's just, they don't have to think about it, they just do. But most actors don't. See, if I say to almost any actor, do you want to define what an objective is for me? They can probably make a reasonable, go at it. But then when they get up to act, they do not play it. And I go to the theatre and I see people not playing their objectives. They're playing the result of some stuff they found in rehearsal, but they aren't actually playing their objectives in the performance.
Okay, so let's just try and get down to the nitty-gritty. You and an actor, or you as a group, there's one character, and you have said, my senses or my speculation or my...
No, let's go back a little bit. First of all, how do we get to the objective? Now, I asked the actors to make their character lists, which we can talk about another point about character, which means going into the script and digging deep into it and sort of sifting out all the information that is embedded in it referring to their character. Facts about the character, how they talk about themselves, how other people talk about them, how they talk about other people. 4 lists, okay? And what they are saying may not be true, but it's what they say. Now you write those lists out, and then from those you start to analyze. If my character is always saying this and always saying that, maybe this is a reasonable conjecture that my character is like this. And out of those lists, one of the things I asked them to say, and even on the first day of rehearsal, what from all that information and discussion we've had, and this character work is a long process and it's a separate section of rehearsal. What do you think your character's super objective might be? And it only might be, we're not going to set anything in stone or concrete. It's a positive start. And they say, oh, it seems to me that my character wants to do good in the world. And I say, well, yeah, I sort of think that may be possible too. So let's put that down as a start. That's a super objective. Now, the super objective we've been talking about really in big terms on the previous two chats. And you can't play them because they're too general. You have to get down to how those super objectives translate themselves into specific objectives from scene to scene, from moment to moment. Do you see? So you're dealing with the specifics and the concrete period of time. So one of the first things I do with the actors is I never have a first reading sitting. I think it's a waste of time. And all it means is the actors are sitting on their bottoms and their heads are getting involved and their bodies are going dead. And they're not finding out anything about the play because they're not reading very well. And they're probably not listening to what the other people are saying, who are also not reading very well. Or they've decided to give you their final performance on day one. Some people are very good readers, none of which is helpful. And having asked them to do a lot of preparation, I'm pretty much assured that they have had to read the play at least 3 or 4 times, not only looking at their own lines. So I will get them up, script in hand, say, and you see, all this stuff is terribly interlocked with other techniques. I will break, and we can talk about this later on. I don't know, maybe we should have talked about analysis beforehand. I break a scene up into units. Mm-hmm. And they're units in which one event occurs which involves anybody who's in that scene at that moment. Now, events are a rather grand word, but it could be somebody spills some coffee and the event is apologizing and cleaning it up. Or it might be they arrive. So it's all about coming in and saying, hello, how are you, and arriving. And then somebody says or does something which creates a transition that we move on to another thing. So I try to break up for the actors their scenes and acts into units. Now, yeah, that's right. Now, the units can be very short. They could be 1 stage direction. They could be 3 pages. It depends on the play and the context and what's going on. So length has nothing to do with it. Okay. So what I will do, basically, I will get the actors with their scripts up on their feet. And they will already have been given their units, which will have a title, an active title. They arrive, they have an argument, they greet each other after a long absence, they debate the political situation at the moment, whatever it is, right? And then I say, okay, just play with your scripts, units 1, 2, or 3, and I usually try to get a length which is about 2 pages long. 2.5 pages, 1.5 pages, depending on the density of the text. Okay. And I say, all I want you to do is to talk to each other, listen to each other, and make contact in whatever way you can. And I've described the space to them, and they can move wherever they want, and they should do. Okay. So they do it. Then I say, put your scripts down. Now play those units again. This is not a memory exercise, but whatever of the text you remember, use and fill it in with whatever you feel is appropriate. And they do it with varying success. If they've really been talking and listening to each other, it'll be better. If they've just been in the vague haze, just trying to make sense of the text, nothing much will have happened. Anyway, they get through it as best they can. And sometimes they get stuck, sometimes they go round in circles. Sometimes one of the actors is enterprising and throws a little clue so the other one can pick up, but they get through it. And it's no good them saying to me, oh, I don't know, because I say, this is an improvisation, you do not stop. And they have to struggle through it. Okay. Then I say to them, what do you think your objective is in those units? And this must not be a long discussion. You know, an actor will often say, oh, I feel, I say, no, I don't want to know what you're feeling. I want to know what you wanted from your partner in that scene. And they come up usually with a pretty good thing quite quickly. You do not want to stop and have long conversations to get into your head, because you say, okay, now pick up your scripts, do those same three units again, and move on to the next 3 or 4. And you work your way through the play act by act in that way, usually doing an act a day for 3 or 4 days, whatever it is, do you see? And they don't have to cling to those objectives, all right? They're just there. It's been placed in them as a possibility. Now, good actors working this way, there's something going on while they're playing. They're saying, oh, I don't understand that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I can see a connection. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit like sparring rather than having the prize fight. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. They're trying, they don't have to know anything about their characters, and why should they on the first day? So you can do this. You make as much sense as you can of the situation. Okay. So that is their first meeting with their objectives.
Let me just interrupt for a second there and ask you, let's say you've got 3 units that you've done, and one was meeting John when you came into the house. John went off to make a cup of coffee, and you're left with Eileen. Your objective might be completely different. Because
yes, of course, it should change. No, it depends what happens between you.
Exactly.
No, I mean, you can have several units in which one event is happening, but within it, the actors are doing different things. I mean, I've got an example from The Winter's Tale in Different Every Night of Hermione when she's on trial. She wants people to see that she's been unjustly accused and imprisoned. That's her objective throughout the whole of that. But she tries to show you that in so many different ways. They've broken it up into units. She declares her devotion to her husband. She describes how brutally her child has been removed from her. She plays her status, if my father was the Tsar of Russia, if he could see me now. She tries to convince them that she's always been a devoted wife and a loyal wife and so forth. And she goes through, I don't think I could find it easily right away, but so it's the same objective, but different units.
Different units in that case, but
it's usually the change often comes when another person comes into the room, or there might be a split between the 2 characters. If there are 2 characters, let's say I have an argument with you, and neither of us gets her own way, I can suddenly say, oh, I'm not going to argue with you more. I give up. It's really boring. It's still the same objective because I'm reacting to what I didn't get. Do you see what I mean? I'm still in conflict with you. It would need the other actor to say, I want to make friends with you. They make up.
Okay, Mike, let me then, taking what you just said there, and ask you this. Do you ever take that objective out of the play? So I want to be friends with you is the objective that character's playing in the scene. Do you ever take it out of there and say, okay, let's just improvise a scene?
No, I don't anymore. I used to do something like that years and years ago when I just came out of college. I used to find a modern equivalent if I was doing a classic play and get them to improvise. And of course, it never worked because the characters were different. They didn't have characters. I mean, what's the good of taking an Ibsen play or a Shakespeare and you're talking, you know, it's a waste of time, I think.
Okay.
No, so I just trust that it's implanted in them that they've got to think about objectives, and it's up to the actors to start to make those objectives their own. Now, just stepping out of the process for a minute, one of the problems I've never found a satisfactory exercise to get actors out of their heads and into their bodies with an objective, because the problem is if you play, the actor can understand the objective very clearly. And so they play from their head and they don't get their body. So they become like bulldozers. I want to be your friend because you're not. And and you can see the tension of them making the effort to play an objective, but their intention, because it's not deeply in them. And one of the problems, it seems to me, for the actor is how do you get out of your head and into your body? Because, as you said, we go earlier on in one of the earliest conversation we had about this, that we go around with a lot of objectives that we don't realize we have. We don't have to think about. We can't name them because they're just in us. Well, this is true of the characters too. But we have to get that into the actor's body. And I've tried it by physical techniques, you know, Larburn and psychological gestures and things which we can also talk about. And sometimes I say to the actor, okay, you've got this objective, which you understand in your head. Now you can change the words a little bit, because another problem is words have a huge influence on people. Some words are very stimulating for some actors and not for others. I mean, I've gone into rehearsal saying, oh, I think your objective is such and such, and feeling I've really hit the mark. It's wonderful because that word does something for me. And the actor said, oh, right, yes. And it doesn't have the same impact because words we relate to very personally. And I often say, well, look, spend some time, try to somehow get the feeling from over here and send it down into your gut, listen, to make it a need. And if you can, try to make the need so strong that you want to take action to deal with it. Because an objective should make you want to move, do things, make you active. Now, another thing I should say about objectives is that you cannot play an objective. The objective is inside you like fuel, and you turn on the ignition, which makes the thing move. What you do play are the actions that you use in order to try to achieve your objective. But you've got to have the objective there as a sort of inspirer, incensor, you know, as the fuel to move you, the instigator. You see, and of course, then the actors have their intellectual idea of the super objective, and they're saying, well, if I'm somebody who goes through life wanting this, does that objective in the scene match that? And that's a journey through the play. That's all I can tell you. It's very, in a way, it's very elusive. You know, I can talk more clearly about actions, but it's actually believing you need something. Now, you see, I think I can believe I want something because I've been thinking about it so much, and because over the last few years I've done Pilates and my center is very alive, because I do think it's all down there in the gut. I mean, if you were to suggest an objective to me now, I think I could play it. I mean, you could try it, actually, just see, you know, what's my objective? Give me an objective for talking to you.
I want to, this is you. I want to dazzle you with my verbal brilliance.
Well, not great, because my verbal brilliance is, my memory is fake.
All right. I want to I want to, okay. This is quite funny because, all right, I want to make you recognize how incredibly sexy I am.
Okay, Peter, right. Look, I I love talking about acting because it's so much a part of me. I feel so whole. It affects my whole body. It gives me a sort of sensuality. And it is terribly interesting, that when I'm rehearsing, I don't need sex because somehow all that energy is directed into creating stuff with the actors. Now, as soon as I stop rehearsal, I'm running around like a rabbit, absolutely all over the place. I can't get enough of it. And so, I think there's something deeply sexual, and I respond to that. I feel, okay, give me another one.
Let me think. I want to bully you into recognizing how important it is.
All right, look, Peter. Yeah, I really appreciate you asking me to do these interviews, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to make these ideas very clear to people. But somehow I feel you're being a little bit dilettante about it, and it is serious. And you do keep throwing up all these sort of, well, if I may, excuse me for saying so, but these slightly amateur acting ideas. And I want to sort of cut those out to make you understand that acting is a very profound job and it has to be taken seriously. All right, you want to amuse and entertain people, but you've actually got to understand it goes into great depths. So, I mean, unless you're willing to go with me on that, there's no point in us doing this.
Okay, stop. Now that completely links with something that I want to talk about, which is something, again, when I was a very young actor and I didn't think about stuff, I allowed to happen. But when I started to become a too much of a thinking actor, I was often very shocked about how much I felt as a consequence of what somebody was doing to me on stage.
That's good.
No, but I thought, oh my God, I shouldn't be feeling these things. And I'll give you one particular example, and then we can just talk about it. I remember I was at Bristol Old Vic, and we had Danny Webb and a couple of other actors. I was auditioning them in the play to be in a rock band, okay? And I was the whatever you call them, an A&R man. I was smooth and I played the piano and they had to sing and all that kind of stuff. There were these three punk guys, one woman and two men. They were seriously scary. The performances were scary. And I was this smooth guy with my tie and everything. And I just remember feeling terrified of these people. Yet at the same time, knowing that I had to absolutely maintain my professional distance, power. I was the one auditioning them. They weren't auditioning me, and all those other things that were going on. And I just remember thinking, this is extraordinary because it is infiltrating my performance. Their aggression towards me, is kind of ripping apart my sense of control that I should be having. So my objective, presumably in that part, and I didn't think of it in these terms, my objective in that scene was to audition these three, punky newcomers. But my objective was constantly being undermined, in a sense, by their aggressive presence. So what I'm saying is, if you play an objective strongly, somebody else is going to feel something. And
yes, of course, and they come back.
The reason I'm saying that is that is sexy and bullying. It did something to me.
No, it does. You see, now the thing. Now I'm just thinking, about technically playing an objective. You see, I really did talk to you, and I believed I was talking to you when I did it. And a lot of actors, when they're close together in space, there's a sort of inhibition, a sort of politeness, which stops you really talking to that person. You sort of talk at them. you sort of demonstrate in front of them. And I will say to an actor, look, if you're playing a character, okay, I'm playing, I don't know, Tusenbach, and you're Verschienen, but it's Mike Alfreds playing Tusenbach, trying to make contact with Verschienen, who is Peter. And so we have to go through, transcend these or traverse these masks, because I'm actually dealing with my actor mate. We are creating this together, and I have to talk to you, because finally, you know, Verschienen is inside you, or you're inside Verschienen, whichever. Do you see what I mean? So actually, at the moment I'm talking to you, I can believe totally that I'm doing it. Mm. And I'm not inhibited. And immediately I can, it doesn't take me any effort to imagine. I don't have to invent. Those last two things I did, they just came out. Because I was really wondering that I'm a very sexual person, Peter. You know. Yeah. I really am. And you know, and the thoughts, I never thought about telling you about how, which is actually very true in rehearsal. I practically never have sex while I'm preparing, you know, working on a play. You know, or never did. You know, so it's having the confidence to somehow believe that I need this from you and wanting you to get what I was. Mm-hmm. Now, if you'd have come back to me and said, I think that's disgusting on the first one, or inappropriate, or for the second one to argue with me, or to start crying, or do something, then I would have had to adjust in a way. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's basically that absolutely eye to eye and just believing. You see, and again, I have a feeling, certainly from the actors I've worked with, who as I think I've said before, I love working with you, that they have the ability to believe immediately. Absolutely. There's no, I mean, it may not be interpretively right because they don't know the character, but they can believe as far as they understand the situation.
And there isn't that distance.
No.
You know, that distance where you are going, am I doing this properly? Am I doing this right?
No, because I'm totally concentrated. You see, one of the wonderful things about an objective, if you're really playing to your partner, there's no room or very little room for that other actor clutter of analyzing yourself, observing yourself. And when we get to points of concentration further on, that even in a greater way even removes what one's doing. So you are, in a sense, for those moments, living and behaving as the character, thinking as the character, behaving as the character. Yeah.
Okay. Now, listen, Mike. Do you feel that we have covered? Is there anything else that you feel that we want to say? Because there's a marker here, which is about, and something that you've talked about recently, and I mean, dare I say it, I've kind of always known about acting, about human nature actually, is that the moment we adopt a kind of physicality, our minds and our spirit and our souls start to, change. So the moment that you started to kind of come onto me like that.
Oh, yes, of course, because we are holistic. Now we can talk about physical techniques. We can talk when we get to characterization, because I mean all these things connect up, you see, and taking them apart is very difficult. But of course, if I really believe and I get involved, my body will get involved. And that's what depresses me so much about watching actors now. They say the lines and they're sort of sincere, but they never change. I get the same energy, the same gestures, the same behaviors, because they're locked, because they are not in touch with their bodies. They may be flexible and do wonderful warm-ups and, and their muscles are all thick, but they haven't somehow connected the thought with feeling with body, and they all have to come together. Absolutely, and it's one thing. But I've got a little list of things that I might just talk about objectives, because they solve many. First of all, without an objective, the actor can have no real life on the stage. Oh yes, the actor is breathing and walking and talking, but they're performing something they've worked out, and there's no genuine life, because you said you felt something when you were interviewing those rock ground things, because something happened, because they were good actors and they really got through to you. You see, so something happened. Now that's what I'm looking for, that something happened between the actors when I'm watching. And most of the time when I go to theatre, 75, 80% of the time, nothing is happening. They're playing very truthfully, they know how it works, I know how to respond to you, but nothing is really, they're not touching each other. Maybe in rehearsals, the first, when they made those initial discoveries, something happened. Then it's all polished and glossed and repeated, and the immediacy goes. Because if I know how you're going to reply to me and how you're going to react to me before you do it, and if I also know how I'm going to play my scene, I can never be surprised, I can never be new, I can never be fresh, nothing can happen. So it's what I call a sort of virtual reality, most performances. And audiences, I mean, if the actors are very slick and they've got a lot of technique and and charm and everything, they can cover that. And a lot of people don't see that nothing's going on. And that's why I get bored in the theatre, because nothing's happening. And if it's not happening, it's not active. Okay, the actors are moving their bodies around and saying things and displaying themselves, but it has no inner life. It has no real life to it, But now, objectives are very good because they create conflict, which drama needs. Objectives are very good because they create plot. Because if I want something, I'm trying to get it from you and you're trying to get something from me, it struggles and different things happen. And we do things which become the plot. The plot isn't something else and the characters are stuck into it. I heard a novelist being interviewed by an interviewer who should have known better saying, oh, which do you do first, the plot or the characters? And the writer said, well, of course, the characters, because the plot comes out of the characters. You see, so the objectives of that. And our objectives, I'm just saying to you, they only work, but they do work. If you have an objective, you have to make contact, genuine, truthful contact with your partner. And be daring enough to have an effect on them and allowing yourself to be affected by them. You leave all defenses alone behind. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable to what happens. And that's a big ask for most actors, but it shouldn't be, because that's the actor's job. And objectives is a scenic fuel. It's a thing that gets you going, because actually, finally, what's your specific playing or actions? Objectives are holistic, because as you're saying, you were feeling, if I want something for you, and I really want it, the feeling arises in me. I don't have to search for feeling, it's there. If I want you to see me as being somebody who's kind of cool, was very sexy when I was young, yeah. Immediately, my body comes alive. So thoughts, feelings, and body become one. And if you play your objectives, they will initiate that. Objectives and balance. Yes, and unfulfilled objectives are a part of the condition in which actors exist. You don't want to be balanced on stage. You may try to be calm, but it's not interesting. If there was no conflict, it would be very boring to watch a play. Hello, how are you? Do you want a cup of tea? I'd love one. Oh, thank you. That is nice. Had a nice day. Had a lovely day. Did you? Is it cold? Yes, it is cold, isn't it? I mean, why would we watch? We'd watch the behavior for a bit, but then after a while, what are we waiting for? There's no, where are we going?
Well, we would instantly, in that instance, we would instantly start to speculate about what their objectives were, because we couldn't believe that it would just be,
Now, on the surface, that may be the text, but then we've got to say, what are they wanting from each other? Exactly, Peter. But if a play was written in very bland, just chat, then it wouldn't work. Okay, and the other thing to say is about objectives and lateral thinking, and that really comes down to actions more than anything else. Because if I want something from you and I don't seem to be getting it, I've got to try different tactics. And the really creative actor who's really fueled instinctively uses lateral thinking. They think, if I can't get that way, boom, boom, I'm going to go round the corner and come back. And then those choices are so imaginative and so delightful. And student actors, as I said, when they go, oh, my objective is this. I want you to think I'm very sexy. I'm very sexy. Look, I'm very sexy. I'm not, I don't feel I'm talking to you. I'm displaying myself in front of you, but I'm not playing anything. Or I'm using too much energy to, you know, I want to bully you, so I'm bullying you. I'm bullying you, Peter, you see, because I'm a very strong character. And I'm going, these are my words. And I'm not contacting you.
Mm. Mm.
Do you see? And no, because I want something back. And if I'm not getting something back, I should try other ways. And of course, some characters don't have that flexibility. And so they go on, pushing the point, and they may win by just wearing somebody down.
Well, in fact, you see, when you talked about Stanley, it sounds as though his objective was very, very clear, and he didn't have many strategies. And in the end, he was forced to commit.
Well, he does have different strategies, because depending on what she gives him,
right,
he makes fun of her. He sort of flirts with her just to destabilize her. He accuses her of stuff. You know, he goes through all her luggage and says, "Where did this come from? This must be very well," you know. And he smashes crockery when they're having a meal, because she's putting all the airs and graces for Stanley's birthday, you know. And he says, "I'm sick of this." Yeah. He does. He responds specifically to what she's giving him. And he even destroys her. Mitch, his good friend, his closest buddy, who's a bachelor, falls for her. And Stanley and there's a little moment when she thinks she might have found some sort of happiness, although Mitch is a totally inappropriate person for her. And Stanley just is not going to let his close friend be trapped by this woman. And he digs into her background and lets Mitch know that she had a terrible reputation in this small southern town she lived in, and destroys. He does a lot of things to destroy her. First of all, when are you going?
Mike, pick up that piece of paper one more time. Just to finish our conversation, the one that you just did the list on. You had the list, okay? Don't just read the list, just the headlines one more time for us, okay?
Okay, yeah, okay. Objectives create conflict.
Right.
Objectives create plot. Objectives create genuine contact between actors. Objectives are the scenic fuel that ignites the actor into actions. Yeah, objectives are strategies, actions are tactics. Mm-hmm. Objectives avoid balance and calm. They create unbalance. Objectives played wittily get lateral thinking going, getting the mind imaginative. Yeah, they do everything that's needed for an act. That's why I say they are the most important technique for the actor. And if they had no other techniques at all, as long as they had objectives, they could play truthfully.
Okay.
You know, because it does everything it should do. And the way it's taught in schools, oh yes, we did that in the first term. Oh, very interesting. Yes, it was nice. And it's never been brought up since. And so it just becomes one of a whole selection of things that they might or might not use. I had an actress I worked with, and she was very good. In fact, she played a cardinal in The Seagull for me, and finally was rather good. And I offered her another part later, a few years later. She said, "Oh, Mike, thank you for asking, but I don't think I could bear you constantly asking me what I wanted in a scene." So she turned me down, you know. And we did have a battle during the Seagull. It was quite interesting. She did resist a lot. But anyway, there we are. So
okay, so we're going to bring this to a close. But what I think is our next pointer for the next one is, because you know we've said all along that these things are very holistic. You know, you kind of don't have one thing without the other, because you don't play an objective like you said without strategies, without action, without bodies, without voices, without all these other things. The objective does not exist in isolation. So I think maybe well, we'll talk about this sort of off camera, but maybe our next port of call is the idea of how you put objectives into action. You know, what you do as a
Well,
director.
then we talk about actions.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, let's do that because that's a logical thing and that's what the actor plays and we can go along with that. Okay, fine.
brilliant.
Okay,
Okay, well, thank you, Mike,
thank you, Peter.
and we'll talk again soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that chat. And if you did, would you press the like button and also the subscribe button? That would be great. And if you wanted to be given alerts to when the next one is happening, just press the bell button. If you want to put any comments or any questions underneath here, underneath the video, please do. And at some point I will re-interview Mike, as it were, and put some of these questions to him. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.